Well, hello, hello. Let's see. Try to make sure everything's over here okay. Hey, now we're getting some viewers in. Very good. Hey, Benjamin. Okay, Sorry, I started a couple minutes late. I know I scheduled this for 1, and I had a couple weird things to deal with my setup. So I think I'm ready to go now. Let me let some more people get in here. We'll get started in a moment. I will say, if you've got a question that you want answered, that you'd like answered, I'm going to choose 2 or 3 during a segment of this video. So if you will comment on there, oops, and I will try to pick out 2 or 3 to answer from there. So put your Q's out now so I can get an A for you. Hi, Daniel Escobar from Guatemala. I hope everybody's having a good Sunday so far, a good weekend. Hope everybody's able to relax as much as possible. If you are a church-going person, I hope you were able to stay safe while at church, or maybe watch church online. If you're not a church-going person, I hope you got to sleep in. I guess you could have a best of both worlds. Maybe theoretically you could sleep in and watch a worship service online, or go to an afternoon service. Although if you're at an afternoon service, you're probably not here. I guess that depends on where you live. I guess, it depends on which time zone you're in. People watching are slowly increasing, so we're going to let some more people come in. We're at 33 now. I'm in a rocking chair, so that's why I'm kind of rocking back and forth. It's a nice sort of smooth rocker, so you see me rock back and forth a little bit. Hello, Yadir. Greetings from New Jersey, waiting for new album. As I said, if you have any questions, submit a question over here in the comments, and I will try to get to it. There we'll have a question and answer segment. Hi, Andres from Colombia. Hi, Shane. See you in there. How was your Sunday today? Do you guys have like a Zoom church or something? From Benjamin. Actually, I won't even include that in the Q&As. I'll just answer that here in a moment. Benjamin Newman asked about my Sunday, and so let me answer that after I get to the format for these. So there's enough now, and I guess if you come to this video late, you can always go back and watch the beginning minutes of this because it's going to be posted on our page. But the plan for this is my plan is to do this weekly. That's why it's called Sundays with Seth. I thought about calling it Sundays with Uncle Seth. It's kind of like I'm the uncle that you never had or never wanted. The dirty old grumpy uncle who tells you all kinds of stupid stuff that you wouldn't want to hear and you have to roll your eyes. That's what kind of uncle I aspire to be. So I thought about Sundays with Uncle Seth, but that gets a little be a tongue twister, kind of a mouthful. So yeah, I got another question here about favorite BTA album. I'll put that down as maybe a possible question to get to. I don't know, but we're gonna do Sundays with Seth, and the plan is I would call it a metal church liturgy. And what I mean by that is in some church services you have liturgy, which is sort of the order of worship, and it's similar from Sunday to Sunday. And I think we can have. I think there's a lot of use in liturgy just to get used to the things you do together, and kind of what the next move is. So I call this Metal Church Liturgy. There actually is a band, by the way, called Metal Church, and they have an album called Metal Church, and on that album is a song called Metal Church. It's not great, but it's like kind of 80s metal, and it's if you want to go on Spotify or Apple Music or Amazon Music or whatever and look up Metal Church, the song Metal Church on the album Metal Church by the band Metal Church. You can listen to it, kind of like the song Bad Company on the album Bad Company by the band Bad Company. So I'm thinking of this weekly thing as being sort of this Metal Church liturgy. And so the way we're going to do it each week is we'll have this sort of intro and recap of the previous week, since the last video. And in that, I'll talk just briefly about what's happened in my personal life during the last week, other larger events, um, uh, things maybe going on in other band. Well, yeah, just stuff that happened since last week. Then, secondly, we'll go to what I call Around the Horn, where I'll touch base on just stuff with other band members that both past and present, and all the various people that have been involved with BTA in the past, and if I've heard from them and what they're up to and that kind of stuff. And then third, we'll go to a section called Merch of the Week, and I'll feature an item of merchandise that you can get if you want, and some suggestions on how to utilize it best. And then we'll go, and the fourth item will be Q&A. So that's what I'm taking cues for right now, is for that Q&A. And I'm actually looking through the comments as I speak, looking for cues. I see someone say Metal Church Liturgy does have a nice ring to it. Thank you. So, yeah, Metal Church Liturgy. Oh, someone says Metal Church was cool in the 80s. That's possible. I wouldn't call them cool now, but me. Oh, Shane Beecham says there's another band. The song Black Sabbath on the album Black Sabbath by the band Black Sabbath. Oh, this is great. I'm pretty sure that POD had a song called Payable on Death or POD, but I don't know if it was on an album called POD. Brad says he hopes I'm doing well. I am doing well. Thank you, Brad. Let's see. Okay. Prepper video. Oh, ha! Guy in the basement talking about the end of all things and how to catch stray cats for food after the markets go dry. I do not endorse eating meat. I'm not a strict vegetarian, but I'm pretty close. My wife's vegetarian, and so I very rarely eat meat, and I would never eat a cat, although I really don't like cats. We have a cat, and it is dumb. It's a really dumb cat. I like dogs more, but we don't have a dog. So, okay, so talking about Q&A, that's the fourth part of the Metal Church Liturgy is Q&A. The fifth part is Riff of the Week, so I will plan to play a riff or two for you guys and kind of explain how we wrote it and where it came from and all that kind of stuff. And I think I have the lighting fixed for me. If you saw the first video I ever did, the first BTA Facebook Live video from a couple weeks ago, I was using overhead lights and it was producing a lot of glare. So now I'm using, there's two lamps that are right behind the screen so that my face is illuminated, but there shouldn't be any like glare from behind me. So I think I got that figured out. So yeah, every week in Metal Church Liturgy, it will be, the fifth thing will be Riff of the Week. And then finally, I'll cap it off with story times. Everybody wants to hear a story before they're put to bed, right? So, oh, Brad Whipper, favorite song to play live? Favorite tour you played? Okay, that's a good question, Brad. So favorite song, and or maybe favorite tour. Yeah. So submit your cues. Women have an unhealthy obsession with cats. My wife likes the cat. That's why we have the cat. Hi from South Africa, from Marique, if I'm saying that right. Devin says hi. Mark says still in touch with the guys from BTA. Yeah, Mark, I won't include that in the Q&A either, but I will tell you now. Part of the reason that part number 2 of our Metal Church Liturgy is Around the Horn, I'm going to sort of touch base on some of those things each time about some of the other guys from BTA each week. So sometimes there'll be news, maybe sometimes there won't, but yeah, we'll see. Oh, Don Leszewski reminds me. There's a song, Iron Maiden, on the album Iron Maiden by the band Iron Maiden. This is that man. We missed a chance. If we do another album, I'll have to at least put it on the name possibilities. Album Becoming the Archetype by the band Becoming the Archetype, featuring the hit smash single Becoming the Archetype. Well, if we do another album, it'll be a hard sell to Jason and the other guys, but I will try my best. You have my word. And by try my best, I will mention it as a joke, and then we will chuckle lightly, and then we will probably hard pass on it. Okay. Okay, so now that we're, over 10 minutes in, let's go ahead and get started. So we've gone over the format. I fielded a few cues to answer later. So part one in our Metal Church liturgy is sort of intro and recap of the week. Now, we don't have just a week to go over. Since the last video, it's been a couple weeks. But I hope you're staying safe during the pandemic. Obviously, there's a pandemic raging around the world. Numbers have spiked in several states. And so I don't know what state each of you are in, or I know many of you are not even in America. So wherever you are, it doesn't matter. I hope you're staying safe and healthy. And if you are lonely in isolation, I hope you're able to reach out to somebody, and I hope this video helps. This is part of the deal, is that I know that people are doing a lot of Zoom and other FaceTime and other stuff like that. So I'm hoping this is at least somewhat helpful to give you something else to interact with. And we are doing a little interaction. This is not just a one-way flow of information. I am reading your comments, and we are speaking back and forth a little bit. So hope you're staying safe. I hope that you're accessorizing a little bit if you have face masks. So I let my kids pick out a bunch of mine. So I got a whole bunch just so I can change them out. So here's one that I have. And this one is a Nightmare Before Christmas one. I let my kids also choose a cat one. It looks like I have a cat face. And let's see, they also chose Mario, Sonic. Of course, I got a Jurassic Park one, although I think this is more like Jurassic World. So I kind of like this, but it's weird that you can see me breathe. It's like, so yeah, I'm not fond of that. But I got a whole bunch of them. So you can accessorize your face mask. I did send out some BTA shirts, and some people made them into face masks out of like youth large, which is basically an extra small. It fits you well if you're about 10 years old, maybe 12, but if you're an adult, it is a hard fit. You don't want to see me in youth large. So if you'd like one, actually, I still have 3 youth larges, so maybe send us a message if you want one of those and want to make a face mask out of a BTA shirt. But I'm a pastor of a Lutheran church up here in Wisconsin. My family and I moved here in December into the Madison area, and we did our first drive-in worship this morning. So we have not been meeting since lockdown in mid-March. We've been doing video worship, and we've been planning for what it might look like to start doing worship again. And we're doing what we're calling drive-in worship, where people drive their cars into the parking lot, pointed toward the building, and then the other pastor and I stand up at the front, and we broadcast over an FM station. So you tune in, you're sitting in your car, and you tune into a FM station 101.1, and then we have the worship service out there. And it worked very well. We had a lot of good volunteers, and it was a little hot, even though it was only 70 degrees. Sitting in the full sunlight with a jacket on was a little hot. We didn't wear our stoles and albs this morning. We might in the future, we'll see. But that's what I would normally wear for worship. But because of that, I'm a little exhausted. Sunday afternoons are typically tiring times for pastors. I'm not entirely sure why, but doing all that stuff on Sunday morning physically wears you out, and like emotionally and mentally wears you out for reasons I don't completely understand. And that seems to be common among a lot of pastors. So I don't know that this is the best time to do it. I may switch the time up in future Sundays with Uncle Seth videos. So watch out for that. I'll try to post by Friday each week what time we're doing. 1 p.m. might be a little early, because if I can get a nap, I'd like to get a nap. But, we'll see. One worked out okay today. Not ideal, but it's okay. So there's our welcome and introduction, part 1 of our Middle Church liturgy. Now we go to part 2, Around the Horn. So let's see. I can go to other projects I've done. I did a folk album of 10 songs with my friend Brandon Michael Williams, who is in a band Anchors with me. And I think we're going to be playing some of those folk songs for a prelude at church worship, like before church starts as cars are driving in next week. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. I also was in that band, like I said, Anchors. I'm wearing an Anchor shirt right now. I think I wore one in the last BTA video. Anchors hasn't really done anything for the last 10 years. I have a couple singles I just recorded at home on GarageBand, and I released one of them, and I have another one. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but if you're interested, I can probably just send it to you. And I've got some shirts left over if you want one. Hit me up. But of course, I'm not the only one that has other projects. So when Jason first left BTA, he did a thing with Alex, another ex-BTA member, and did a band called Solomores, just a one-off side project, and now he's doing a more permanent thing called Death Therapy. And my understanding is that Death Therapy went and played a concert in Indiana. And so I saw on Facebook that Jason was posting about going up to it and coming home from it. So I don't know how it went. I haven't touched base with him in the last couple days, but I assume it went okay. I hope everybody was able to stay as safe as possible and not transmit. That's the dangerous thing, is that sometimes people are asymptomatic, and so they don't think they have the virus and they pass it on. So hope everybody was safe from that. But as far as I know, he went, did it, and is back now. And that's Death Therapy. That's Jason's band. Daniel, of course, we were the first touring band he was in, and it was a privilege to add him to our band. And he was a young guy when he joined, but after BTA went on hiatus, Daniel Gailey just went on to bigger and bigger and bigger and better things. So he first joined Phineas, and he's still in Phineas. And I don't think Phineas is as active recently, but then he went on from that to Fit for a King. And I think they just unveiled a new album cover for their newest album release. And so I've been seeing that on Instagram and Facebook and whatnot and Twitter. So I don't remember the name of the album, but you'll want to check that out if you're a fan of Fit for a King or Daniel Gailey or any of those other, current solid state bands. I have had some conversations with members. I mentioned this in the previous video, but nothing substantial since then. So things are still kind of in a holding pattern for now. And if I get any updates, I will pass them along, of course. So that's part 2. Now we move to part 3 of Metal Church Liturgy, Merch of the Week. And so we have a pretty wicked cool patch. We've done these since 2005 from our first tours, and it's a canvas patch that is cut out. It's not iron-on, and so you want to sew it on around the edges. And what a lot of people do is they sew it onto jackets they have. Hey! So this is a jacket I have. I used to wear on tour a lot. It's got some of the patches I put on there. Slick Shoes, The Clash, Blindside. Got some pins on there from MXPX, Dropkick Murphys, honestly, At the Drive-In. I got this BTA patch, which we sold out of, and I like that. I'm not a great sewer myself, so some of these are not stuck on super well. I got an Op Ivy patch there. And then a friend gave me a bunch of studs, so I stuck studs onto the collar and the shoulders. So, yeah, I kind of like this jacket, but I haven't had a reason to wear it. It's not exactly good office space wear. It's not exactly appropriate church attire, so I don't have as many places to wear it anymore. But a lot of people will take these patches and they will sew them on to a place. So say you want to get this patch from us. They're not expensive by any means. Or this patch on our Etsy store, or just by messaging us for just a couple bucks. It costs like 55 cents to ship. And then you maybe stick it on a jacket like that, and you sew it on there. And like I said, if your sewing skills aren't great, you can always use a pin, safety pin, band pin, something like that. And it's a good way to affix it on there. But if you've got some people are calling them battle jackets. I never called it that. I was never that cool, I guess. But if you got a jacket or something like that to stick it on, that's a good place. You can put it on other things too, of course, but it seems like jackets are probably the most appropriate. So that's the merch of the week. So now we're on to part 4 of Metal Liturgy, which is our Q&A. So I wrote down a couple notes real quick, and now I'm going to just scroll briefly through. Here's another good one about parent, church leader, and metal enthusiast. Uh, that's a good one. Trying to see if there's any other Q's. Actually, if you're doing a Q for Q&A, label it as like Q semicolon. What's the two dots? Two dots are semicolon, right? Yeah. Uh, thanks for liking the jacket, Anderson. How's your lifestyle changed being that time? Okay. Okay, so part 4 Q&A. Favorite live song or tour? Someone asked. We have loved playing ever since we finished writing it, Necrotizing Fasciitis. That song, so it's a standalone single. It's not on any of our full-length albums, and it was never released physically. But Necrotizing Fasciitis, we wrote in 2009, and it came out in late 2009. So we only had it for about 3.5 to 4 years, the last 3.5, 4 years. But that was always a really fun song to play live. It's brutal and heavy all the way through. It's only 2.5 minutes long. No grand intro or anything. We just usually live, instead of doing the make it sound nasty distorted clip from Jason, we would do a snare hit 4 times, whack 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 whack, and then you're in. And that was a lot of fun to play. We always liked that. One of the questions was, how do I cope with being a parent and a pastor and a metal enthusiast right now? And it kind of relates to how's my lifestyle changed after being a pastor, and how did the church react knowing you were a former metal guitarist? Former, Benjamin, I am a metal guitarist, and you'll see it during Riff of the Week, buddy. Um, uh, People have been completely either appreciative or just don't care as far as the church setting. No one's had a negative reaction. There are a handful of people that either are familiar with BTA or familiar with heavy metal in general, and they go, "Oh, cool," and then the rest just kind of go, "Okay," no big kind of drama or anything about that. As far as being a parent, especially during the pandemic, it's been hard. And I assume it's hard for almost every other parent out there. This is not a great time to have kids cooped up in the house a lot. So I try to get them outside as much as we can, but it's not easy. And I don't really know. I don't think I ever have any advice or help or suggestions really for anybody. I do have some questions about tours like Europe and Australia. No plans for any shows whatsoever. Tours, shows in any country right now. And even if we did do anything, I mentioned this in the last video, but even if we did do something, it would probably be a recording of some sort, whether that's a EP or a full length or something like that. And it wouldn't be in the coming months. It would be a little ways down the road. And if we did that, it would be awfully difficult to pull off a tour of any kind. Even just a show would be difficult. So, yeah. But the favorite tour. Oh, someone asked about favorite live song, and someone else favorite tour. We did a wonderful tour in summer 2006 with Demon Hunter and Zayo and August Burns Red and Spoken. And it was easily, hands down, the best and biggest tour we ever did. That was right after the Triptych came out for Demon Hunter, and we had our first album out. August Burns Red had their first album out, and it actually worked out really well with the lineup too. So we and August Burns Red came out. We were signed and came out with our debut albums very close to each other. But both albums sold well, but theirs sold a little bit more, so they got to play second, and I was actually appreciative of that. So out of that lineup of 5 bands, we played first every night, which was perfect because we got to kind of set up everything and do our sound check before the show started. Usually there was a line, an hour before doors open, there'd be a line like around the block, several hundred people, if not 1,000 to 2,000 people. I mean, nuts turnouts. We kept running out of merch because we didn't have enough, so we were making t-shirts. Like we would go to, I remember like Michael's or something and buy stencils and spray paint and Sharpies, and then just buy as many plain black t-shirts from Walmart as we could because we ran out of merch and we couldn't get stuff fast enough. And in the parking lots before the show, we would be making our own shirts, spray painting in gold like BTA and stencil on it, and then signing it with silver Sharpies. And that's all we had to sell because we were selling it. That's how many people there were and how much appetite there was for merchandise. But we got to play first, which was perfect because as people were lining up before doors opened, we got to do our sound check, be done, and then when the show was ready, they'd put the fog out and we could walk on stage and people would go nuts and we could play songs, and that worked out perfectly. I would rather have played in the first slot than the second or third slot like August Burns Red or Spoken did. We also had very fast set changes on that tour. So they were encouraged not to do a sound check, every band, because they wanted 5-minute set changes, 5 minutes between bands. So they wanted, several bands to share drum kits and, yada, yada, yada. So we would get done, and literally like the second I'm done playing, running over and grabbing my keyboard and stand and running off stage with it, like as other people are running on stage. And then I'm grabbing, and someone else is moving off my amp, and I think we were sharing cabs. So, there's all these moving pieces. And so they didn't want you to do a set change, or do a sound check. But August Burns Red demanded they do a sound check. So they would literally like sprint their stuff onto the stage in like 2 or 3 minutes after we were done. And then they would do like a 30-second to a minute sound check really quick before they started. So we didn't have to worry about any of that, which was nice. We loved every one of those shows. I think it was about a 3 or 4 week tour. Right leading up to Cornerstone, so must have been late June. Well, probably most of June of 2006 was that tour. It's called the Undying Tour. A lot of fun. A lot of great memories from that tour. So yeah, that was easily our favorite tour. A lot of fun. That's part 4 of Metal Church Liturgy, is the Q&A. Part 5 is Riff of the Week. So this, you may remember that I played a few riffs from 2 songs from Terminate Damnation in the last video. I wanted to play songs from a different album in this one, so let me move my old man rocking chair back and scroll this up a little bit. Here's my guitar. If you got a good name for my guitar, I would take suggestions on that. I used to name my guitars back in the day. Usually a girl's name. I think I used Maria once. I don't remember. I had a Les Paul when I was a teenager, and I had a Fender Stratocaster when I was a teenager. And they were a lot of fun. And I named them. But now we were sponsored by LTD, so I have an LTD. So again, I'm in drop D, and all of our songs were either in drop C, and then we had a few that were in drop B flat. So this will not be in the key that the record is in, so you won't be able to sync these up very well. But on our 4th album, Celestial Completion, track number 3 is Internal Illumination. And that was the one that I was a primary songwriter on, and we wrote that album all in like a together setting through practices, and that was a great way to write an album. And that's part of the reason I wanted to get into these, to tell you a little bit about how this one, just like when I mentioned in the last video about Elegy, how I was writing these riffs on classical guitar in my dorm room while I was in college there with Jason before we signed. This is a similar situation where I wrote the riffs for Internal Illumination, but they were in different orders and had a different song structure. And as we worked on them live, Jason felt like what was originally like the second or third riff would be a good opening one. And so that's how you get to that first riff. It was meant to be a really grinding type of riff. There used to be a I think it's Training for You. Is it Training for Utopia? Now I can't remember. There was some song on a Songs from the Penalty Box sampler. Or you know what? It might even have been a This Is Solid State sampler. Remember those sampler CDs back in the 90s and early 2000s? And I used to call it the Meat Grinder song, but now I can't even remember who it was by. Anyway, this was that kind of grind sort of thing that was meant to just be kind of pulverizing. So that riff starts off with a very fast palm muted chug, and it varies between open and then the fourth fret, and third fret. So. Okay, so that's the beginning of the song, and I mentioned necrotizing fasciitis earlier, and this was also kind of in that vein, just a very fast and heavy riff without a lot of melody. But then the second part of that song does go into melody, and again, it varies on that harmonic minor scale. So you got this. So 1-3, raise 7th to 2, and then back to 1-3 in the scale, and then 2 to 4, and then you got a variation there. And then 1-3 in the scale again, and then 2-4 in the scale. And you pick slide down, and you just have a third variation. You're tremolo picking. And then a fourth variation. Okay, so that's that first riff being heavy, necrotizing fasciitis-like, and then the second riff being a little more melodic and working around in that harmonic minor scale, where you've got that raised 7th. Then after you go back to, later on, you go back to the first riff, and then after the end of that repeat of the opening riff, you got that really atonal heavy riff, which is almost meant to be like a disturbed type riff, where it goes. So you got this this whole little like open 3/4 and open 3/4 up here. So it doesn't really fit in any scale because it's just kind of a gross, kind of atonal thing. Again, just like necrotizing fasciitis or maybe some of the heavier disturbed type riffs. But those that song really came into being again, just like Elegy, because I had ideas for a song, and working with Jason and the band was able to sort of reformat some of that, and I think it came out to its best version once we all had had our input and got to work together on it. So if you are in a band, I highly suggest and highly encourage you to work as much as possible with the other members of the band. Now, it's more difficult for sure. It's much easier to sort of just write your own music and you be the only voice of input. I mean, Jason mentions the beauty of that all the time with Death Therapy. It's like he writes what he wants and then he's ready to go. He doesn't have to, you know, do all the strenuous arguments that we used to do in Becoming the Archetype about that drum part's stupid, you know, or no, we can't do that riff 8 times. We should only do it 4 times because 8 times just really drags on. Or how are we going to transition between this riff and that riff? I mean, you know, all the really like tense moments and arguments about stuff. You don't have to do it when you just work on your own. But I think it does help the songs come out better when I've had other voices involved with my songs for sure. Jason was a lot of times the biggest additional perspective. Occasionally there was John or Alex, maybe a little bit Duck, Daniel, and at least a couple times Devin Townsend was for some of my songs on Dichotomy. And I, you know, oddly enough, I didn't like all the suggestions Devin made originally, which is crazy because you should always trust Devin Townsend. But I ended up going along with all of them because I saw the light after a while. So that was part 5, riff of the week. And so the final part, the benediction, if you will, of our Metal Church liturgy is story time. So I want to tell you a story. I got tons of stories, and so I'll tell one story each week for Sundays with Seth. And the story that I want to tell you is, since we're talking about especially 2005 and the Terminate Damnation era of the band, the first tour we ever did was in early 2005, started in February, and in the winter. And I was 19 when we left on tour. We had just signed to Solid State 2 months before that. We signed in December, I think, of 2004. And we knew we were going to record, but that was coming after the tour. So we started recording, I think, in late March or early April that year, recording Terminate Damnation. So we went on this tour before we even recorded the debut album. And Showbread was headlining. They were a Tooth and Nail band. And the Showdown was on it. They, I think, had just released their debut album on Mono versus Stereo. And Mortal Treason was on there, if you remember them. And Point Zero was the band that played before us, and they were the band that became War of Ages. And so they had a different lineup then, different name and everything. They were in the process of signing with Strike First Records at the time, and then went on to Face Down Records after that. But it was a cool tour. But it being our first tour, we had heard people talk about pranks and all that kind of stuff. So there were bands playing pranks on each other, and it kind of escalated throughout the tour. So we started up in the Northeast. It was bitterly cold in New York and Pennsylvania, and went down the East Coast through West Virginia and all the way down to Florida, played Murray Hill Theater, went across the South, and ended in Arkansas, I think. But, throughout the tour, as we're going through all those different places, people are sabotaging their other band members' guitar cases with smelly socks. And, if someone leaves a van window down in their tour van, they're blasting confetti in there. I think that happened to us once, and it took us forever to get all the confetti out of our van. And they kind of, the pranks kept ratcheting up and up. Well, we kind of reached a point where the pranks died down because they were getting a little bit out of hand, and that was about a week left in the tour. And so we get to the point we're about maybe couple days from the final date of the tour, and we're in New Orleans. And a lot of us hadn't been in New Orleans before, and we had a day off. So we get in there the night after show. We drive right after the show, get into New Orleans, and the Showdown says, "Hey, we can get a room. We can get a discount for you guys. Get a hotel room. We'll get in. We can go visit the city at night and then sleep in tomorrow morning with the day off. And we're like, "Oh, sure, yeah, that sounds great." And they're like, "Okay, we got this discount, so let us go in and get the room, and then we'll come out and you guys can give us the cash for the room." Okay. We didn't have a lot of money for hotel rooms. We usually tried to stay in people's places, after shows, but this was one of the hotel rooms we were going to get. So they go in, they get the rooms, they come back out with the key card and give it to us. Oh, thanks, man. So we're like, "Hey, we're gonna go out for a little while. Thanks for getting us the key. We're gonna go out in the city, and then we'll come check in a room later." So we go out, and we're on Bourbon Street, and we see all kinds of music and stuff. We come back in fairly late that night, and we walk in, and a smell kind of hits you in the face as soon as you walk in the door, and terrible smell. What do you think? Did the room service not clean this room? This is disgusting. So we're looking around. It smells like vomit or poop or something. Looking all over the place. Nothing in the bathroom. Beds seem normal. And someone eventually realizes the little drawer in the nightstand between the beds is slightly open. Where they put like the Gideon Bible and stuff. So Sean Cunningham, our third guitarist at the time, he opens the drawer, and there is the little cups they give you to get water and ice in? There's a little cup in there with a human turd in it. Fresh, stinky. We're like, "Oh my gosh." So, we're trying to cover it with plastic and, throw it away. And we're like, how did they miss that? I think it was Holiday Inn. How did the Holiday Inn room service miss this? And then we start realizing we only got one key card from the Showdown, and usually when you check into hotels they give you two. They kept a key card, so we realized, oh, the Showdown did this. So it's pretty late at night. It's like, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the morning or something like that. So I say, okay, well we'll get them back. So I march down there to their room. We know what room they're in, and I pound on the door, and they're sleeping. and I just keep pounding on the door until someone comes and opens it up. And then as soon as they open it up, I bust through. They kind of crack it open. Who's there? And I bust through and pull down my pants and wave my butt in some of the guys' faces that were in bed just to get back at them. And we're like, yeah, we got them. So we head back to the room, and we're kind of like, okay, they got us with a good prank. We got them back a little bit. So we go to sleep, and the next morning we get up and get our stuff together and check out and walk out the door, and we see our van in the parking lot. And on our van is human vomit. There's throw up all over our windshield, and it's dried on there. Uh, the the Showdown's merch guy had a lot to drink and had thrown up in one of those um, ice cube buckets. And then they had, instead of like putting the vomit down the toilet, they had taken it out in the parking lot and thrown it all over our windshield, and it dried overnight. So we couldn't even like see through the windshield at first, and our windshield wipers were like stuck to the windshield. And it was disgusting, still smelled. And we think, man, they are really good at this. We have tangled with the wrong people. But unbeknownst to me, someone had hung on to the poop that they put in our drawer. So someone went back into our room and got the cup with poop in it that the Showdown had put in our room, and used their poop, using a glove and that cup that it was in, to write. Their van was still in the parking lot. They were still sleeping. We wrote the Showdown in their poop on the side of their van. And I still have some, like, we didn't have digital phones back then. Someone had a disposable camera, and I think I still have that film picture somewhere where we wrote Showdown in the Showdown's feces on the side of their van. And that was the end of that rapidly escalating series of pranks between us and the Showdown on our inaugural tour. So it still is one of the weirdest and easily the grossest memories I have from tour. But if you go on tour, there weren't that many pranks in lots of our other tours, but for whatever reason, that first one, they were just going nuts, and that was easily the largest, grossest, most extended, most escalating one. So I hope that image and I hope that story gives you comfort during the pandemic, and makes you sleepy and ready for bed, because that is the end of our Metal Church liturgy. So rest in power. I'll see you next week for the next episode of Sundays with Seth. Take care.